Every house has the fragrance of its owner, has the markings of its owner. Do you know that you cannot be grateful with a but? I'm grateful, but. Can't be grateful with a but. Who knows the way that we take better than the one that created us? See, the reality is that sometimes the reason why we want things the way that we want them is because we want the glory. And what he's trying to do is take us out of the equation so that he can prepare us to allow glory to flow through us so that we give it back to him. The truth is we're comfortable with what we do, and we despise the way that he does what he does, but it's everything for what we need in order to embody what we become. In order for us to embody the fullness of him and not be full of ourselves, this is the way that we have to go. Something so profound about the passage that says, you haven't been this way before. And we hear it over and over again. We read it all the time. But we really don't consider the profundity in that conversation. You've never been this way before. We say, yeah, I've been this way before. I know how to get there. Yeah, you did it the last time. You did it, and where are you now? You did it that way before, and where did it leave you? We have left him out of the equation, not understanding that you've never been this way before has nothing to necessarily do with direction, but it has everything to do with who we are. It's the fact that we choose our profanity over his profundity. When I say profanity, I'm not talking about words that you say. I'm talking about a lifestyle that we live. Father, deliver us today from the concept of, I got this. Every house has the fragrance of its owner, has the markings of its owner. Do you know that you cannot be grateful with a but? I'm grateful, but. Well, blessings, everybody. It's good to be here another evening with you during this Pesach and unleavened Feast of Unleavened Bread, Moed 5785. I'm excited. Thank you so much to all of those that reached out to me and let me know that you were enjoying this time that we're in. This is an amazing time. It is really actually the most profound time of mankind up to date. Really the most profound, because there are prophetic utterances and prophetic writings and all kinds of prophetic things that are geared towards this very time, this very age of men. And so I'm excited for the unfolding. I'm excited for the unveiling. And we know that the scripture details that there is a time that the earth, all of creation, is awaiting. Even us, we're panting after that promised place. We're panting after the promised position as sons. And so we thank y'all for the deposit of the Holy Spirit. We thank him for the down payment. It was a earnest deposit, Paul described it as. It's just an earnest of the Spirit. And that earnest is a guarantee of more that is to come for the greater works that we are to do in the earth. I'm so excited. Tonight we're going to be on the topic of light travelers, and it's a whole lot of stuff we're going to, weave in and out of this. We're still on the becomers, because we have gone from that place of looking forward to stepping into some spaces to now stepping into those spaces and now looking towards that next space that we're to step into. But we are become, now are we become the sons of Yah, and it has not yet appeared. That details that there is a continual reiteration of who we are. You hear people talking all of the time, or at least I do. I hang out in certain spots where I hear people that are advancing, and they're often talking about reinvention, the reinvention. And that's a thing that's been a thing for me most of my life, that reinvention of myself. And a lot of that came because the Father just kind of repositioned me in different seasons of my life. And instead of becoming frustrated with the repositioning, I just identified with it and stepped into it, and then understood some things that my grandmother said to me before she left here particularly about diversification. Just a lot of things as we mature and as we grow become a lot clearer to us in that maturation. And diversification and understanding those things is really important because it is the way that we advance. It is the way that we understand what to do with what the Father has given us. It just is. We have to become. And in order to continue to become, we have to continue being shifted and things have to be continually advancing. Just like technology, technology is advancing. It used to be every 18 months. Now I believe it's even faster than that, right? That was years ago when I last cited that 18 months of, to the next innovation. And now it looks like it's even quicker than that. But this is we should be beyond that rate of speed, being able to move and to ebb and to flow and make changes and to bend and be pliable. We talked about that a little bit yesterday, but it is so necessary for us to be pliable in the hands of the potter. I wrote a song some years ago off of a song that was an older song when I was growing up about the potter and the wheel, and there is a breaking. And when that breaking occurs, only the potter knows the vessel that it needs to be. And I often pray, Father, make me the vessel that you need me to be in every situation, in every season, in every room. That requires a breaking. We ask for things and we don't understand that breaking goes along with that, because if he's going to form me or shape me into a vessel, then he's got to break the vessel I am. So I'm not confident in that particular shape of things. And that, and this is what we're looking at when we're looking at the children of Israel. This is what we're looking at. We're looking at a people that were unable to be reshaped. They were unable to be formed into a nation that he desired to be the forefront of all the nations and to bring everybody, all nations, into the knowledge of who he was and into the love that he desires to express to his creation. And, just on that thought, this just popped into my head. We're always in the need to identify or to define things. And I had this saying, if I can't define it, I'll have to decline it. And this is one of the ways that you can know if a group of people that are claiming to be the chosen are the chosen, because are they bringing anybody to the Father? The Mashiach his purpose wasn't to bring us to him. His purpose was to bring us to the Father. So are they bringing anybody? Are they shedding light for the nations to see, to come into that light beyond just becoming the ish of a thing, Christianish, Jewish, whatever that is, beyond the ish of the point? Are they bringing people into the knowledge of who the Father is so that they can personally identify their relationship and move forward as the Mashiach did? If that's not the case, then they're not the people. They're not the people. I don't know. The Holy Spirit wanted me to throw that out of there because we know that the word says that they say they are and they are not. And so this is very important in this hour because we got a lot of people almost worshiping the idea of some things that are just so far-fetched. And so they're caught up in those things. And because they're caught up in those things, they are not able to really grasp what the Father is really doing and what he's really saying, because they're using that as a filter to identify with what the Father's words are and what his actions are. And so I pray that we be delivered from that place in this hour. In this hour, we be delivered. I want to read the opening tonight. My brother's going to be on tomorrow. He definitely has got himself all tied up in some things this week, and that's okay. We are okay with that. We know how to continue the work. We know how to continue. We do enjoy him being on with us. Thank you for the likes. I appreciate when you guys get on and do that, because it does make a difference. We are growing. Even though YouTube took about 530 people away from me, we're growing. We went from 539. I think where are we now? Let me look and see. We are now at, I can't see it on here. We are growing 599. So we have grown in the last couple of weeks exponentially, and I'm looking forward to that growth. And thank y'all for the prayer of AK yesterday, who said she prays that people are able to come in contact with our channel and that the channel would grow so that they might know who this living Father is that we serve, and the living Savior that has made things available to us that has been used to reset us and to make us the sons that we should be to our Father. I want to read this opening really quickly. I think it's important. Oh, is this the right one? No. Okay, hold on. Let me go to the right one. I need to go to the right opening. That's what I need to do. And you know, the beauty of having other people on is the fact that we actually have some extra time to get around and to move around and to do what we got to do. Here we go. I found it. Thank you, Father. Thank you for helping me. I'm going to share some really transparent things with you guys today. Hey, AK, I see you in the room. Thank you so much for being in the room. There we go. I'm still looking at something old, though. This is, yeah, for some reason it posted the old conversation, and I want to share the new conversation that he was sharing with me today. Maybe it didn't save. Let me look. Y'all give me a second. Oh, yeah, it didn't save. Oh, wow. Okay. Let me see if I can make it do. Nope. Can't make it do it now. It's a done deal. Okay, I'm gonna go to it real quick and share. I know you guys heard the intro from yesterday, but I wanted you to hear the end of the intro because it cut off yesterday, and so I wanted you to be able to hear that ending. But one of the things that I wanted to share with you guys is that the culture is rich with these false concepts of my truth, my reality. And if you look at the title, we're talking about the becomer still, but we're dealing with light travelers, and light travelers travel light. Can you remember that? Light travelers travel light. It's a tongue twister if you try to say it too fast. But the culture is rich with this idea and this concept of my truth and my reality. You hear people saying it all the time. And it's this mindset that often gives way to faulty foundations that lead to these alternative or alternate realities. And when we start dealing in alternate realities, and you'll understand in the conversation that when I'm dealing with reality, I'm dealing with Abba, I'm dealing with Yah. I'm dealing with the divine reality of who he is and all that he has done and all that he expresses through his sons. I'm dealing with that, okay? But this non-sustainable structure and framework that many people are living by it's a faulty structure, and it's a faulty foundation to build on, you know, until that reality and truth begins to be revealed. And here's the thing. When reality and truth begins to be revealed, which again, reality and truth are persons, not just a concept, okay? When reality and truth begins to be revealed, this is when we have to shake off the lethargy of wanting everything to be handed to us. And then we've got to embark on the personal pursuit, the personal relationship with Yah. And the only reason he reveals himself at the beginning is for the intrigue. So you can be intrigued about, well, who is that? What is that? You know, you're having a good experience. And the scripture details that with loving kindness, he draws us, right? So he does these things to reveal himself. But not everybody appreciates the revelation of who he is. Not everybody appreciates that. They appreciate the things that come along with who he is, but they don't appreciate who he is because they don't engage it. Okay. And so, like I said, the only reason he reveals himself is for that intrigue, that initial intrigue, but he will never fully be known to those who don't genuinely seek him. He'll never be known in a place where it's actually fully beneficial to you unless you seek him for yourself. He doesn't share his secrets with strangers. I'm telling you that right now. There are secret things. There are things of the eternal realm, the unseen realm that the Father desires to share. And even the Master said this. Paul repeated it. And I have found this to be true, that there are things as a leader that you desire to say and that you desire to share, but you know that people are not ready for that. The Master said, he said, look, I got things I want to say to you, but you ain't ready for it. So what I have to do is I have to teach the things that he gives me and know what the limits are, because there's a difference between what I'm studying and what I'm saying often. But I have to leave that space there for the Holy Spirit to begin to deal with the people. And I love that because he still does that. He will do that to people that are hungry. He will do that for them. So travel light, because the weight of the false realities will only hinder your journey to truth. And there are a lot of false realities. This is why the Bible is just chock full of conversations about false prophets, and chock full of conversations about what to identify with and what doctrine to consume. We were talking about this the other day, that if you really look at life, everything is about consumption. Everything. Your existence is based on your consumption. What you consume mentally, what you consume physically, what you consume emotionally, what you consume spiritually, all of it is based on consumption. And it all boils down to how I see a thing, the mind and the brain. It all goes right back to that, the mind and the brain. And we know that the brain is only going to respond to the patterns that have already been created in the mind. What the mind begins to ruminate on, what the mind begins to rehearse, right, is what the brain begins to continue to create the patterns for. It is a pattern recognizer. And that's how we are living, based on the patterns that we recognize. And so one of the things that I wanted to say too was, a lot of people think that things are weird, and, just because it's not your reality doesn't mean that it's not a reality. Can you get that? Just because it's not your reality doesn't mean that it is not a reality, because reality is not defined by what's familiar to us. Okay? There are eternal realities which we have encounters with every day, but people still have no clue of the operations, and they're simply not familiar. But it does not mean that these are not realities. As a matter of fact, the spiritual realm, the spirit realm, is more real than the reality we're looking at. It is the foundation of everything that we see. I was sharing this the other day while I was on the plane, and we'll move in and out of these spaces. Like I said, the Father reveals certain things to us because He wants us to come into the reality of a thing. But even with that, it's not the first time that something like that has happened. But I always know when the Father's getting ready to shift me, because He starts revealing things on a different level. If you understand that, He starts exposing unseen things to me. Okay, and I know that it's time to shift. But the thing about that is that in this season, this is one of those ready or not, here I come seasons for y'all. This is one of those ready or not, here I come. If you're not ready, oh well, because you've had time to rehearse your lines, you've had time to go to the rehearsals, and understand that the Moeds, these appointed times, are the rehearsals for what the Father desires to do in every season of our life. I'm going to stop and see the chat, because I'm just talking and I'm not even paying attention to who's in the room. I glanced and saw, when I was scrolling through YouTube, I saw AK. Yes. Okay, good. Good evening. Maybe the rest of you are on Facebook or whatever, but I'd love for you to step into the room and just share. And I love the interaction tonight. I wish I could bring some of you on with me this evening and just have a time of sharing as I'm expressing the things that the Father has shared with me. But again, just because it's not something that you're familiar with doesn't mean that it's not a reality. And one of the things that the Father is doing expressly with the sons is that we are standing in this authentic identity. But this authentic identity that we're standing in, is a direct assault on um, darkness. It's a direct assault on the metaphysic world. It's a direct assault on the new age world. It's a direct assault, and not for the purpose of condemning everybody in those spaces, because some people are just searching and they're not finding what they're looking for in the spaces. They're not finding Him. That's what I'm going to say. I won't say they're not finding what they're looking for. They're not finding Him in the spaces that they've arrived at. So therefore, they're continuing to go beyond the things that they thought was supposed to be the space that they would find Him. And I believe that even in the space that they're in, the Father could reveal Himself to them and bring them into the spaces that He desires them to be in, to grow authentically and not in a different or an alternative reality. So I'm excited. I don't know if you could tell, but I am excited, and I love sharing this time with the sons of Yah. I love sharing this time with the people of Yah. Community is everything. And when we're looking at the frameworks, and we're looking at all of these things that we're talking about tonight, we look at that in light of the children of Israel. We are in the very season of Passover. And this is a place of remembrance. You know, this is a place that the Father desired in Exodus. He told Moshe, throughout your generations, this is a thing you're going to need to remember. In other words, this is something to pass down. This is something that you need to keep rehearsing, right? Because when we see a thing, this is the beauty of seeing things. When we see a thing, we're able to identify that it's possible. We're able to identify the possibilities of things because we see something or we've heard something, and that begins to that begins to create the imagination. Okay, incite the imagination to begin to form the pictures for what we're seeing and what we're hearing. We know it's possible, so now we have this prototype or this vision, this write out, and we can now look at that and know that, listen, there's something more that I can become. I can attain to something more. I can, I often use the story of Roger Bannister, who was a runner, and in Roger Bannister's story, there was nobody that had run the 4-minute mile before him. Nobody. Nobody ran that 4-minute mile. I'm going to see if I can pull it up so I can tell you when he did this. Okay. I know I've got it in my notes somewhere. 1952 Olympics. Yes, because I talk about it all the time. It's a reference point for me because I understand that the principle of the thing is that when I can see it, I can be it. And this is the purpose of us needing the relationship with the Father, just as the Mashiach had the relationship, because when he could see it, he could be it. Everything that he was becoming, everything that he was capable of, everything that he spoke was a result of him both seeing and hearing the Father. You say, well, how could he see and hear the Father? And he was in the earth, because there is a law that's written on the table of our hearts. There is instruction that's written on the table of our hearts. And when we are able to identify with that instruction, right, we got the culture speaking to us, and then we've got the covenant that's written on our hearts speaking to us. We got to be able to decipher between the two and know that when we are put in that position, that there is a decision that has to be made, the same decision that the master had to make in the wilderness. Yes, he was baptized. Yes, the heavens opened. But most people would stop there. This is my beloved son in whom I'm well pleased. Hear ye him. Most people would stop there and say, oh, I'm validated. He said I'm his son. Y'all got to listen to me. But the Holy Spirit moved him into a place, pushed him into a wilderness. This is the exact same, it's a replica of what happened with the children of Israel, taking them into the wilderness. Why? Because there were some things that he had learned. There were some things that he had identified with, but now it had to be tested. It had to be tested. And I love the fact that the word declares that he came out in the power of the Spirit. But the only reason why he was able to come out in the power of the Spirit is because he had something in him. He was taught something. He saw something. He was able to adhere to the instruction that was given him, even though no opportunity was afforded him yet to be able to utilize the information. A lot of times people are upset. They're frustrated. Well, I got to read. Because if you don't read, when the test comes, you won't be prepared. If you don't read, then you're not creating a foundation to build upon, and you're not going to be able to step into the space of response instead of reaction. See, he was able to respond and not react. The reaction would have been him actually following through with the things that were in his heart and in his mind. Because see, what we miss is that he was tempted in all points, just like we were, yet without sin. I think a lot of people jump over that fact. They jump past that. That didn't happen at the cross. That didn't happen in the stripes. That didn't happen in the thorns of the crown that was put on his head. That happened in his life. And the word also says that he learned from the things that he suffered. I think we look past all of that and we try to create this situation that is not the situation. What he is wanting us to attain to is growth. What he's wanting us to attain to is maturity. What he is desiring for us to identify with is the fact that this is doable. Can somebody put in the room, this is doable? This is doable. This is why we're here. We're here for this spiritual intelligence briefing so that we'll know what to do in this season, how to move in this season. And there are things that the Father's going to leave empty spaces for you to be able to identify what is the next move. Long gone are the days where we tell you every move to make. Yeah, we're moving into promise, and there are some foundational principles that you're going to follow. But then there are going to be some twists and turns on your side, from where you live that don't have nothing to do with the street I'm going down. Right. And you got to be able to hear and to know those things when they come up. I just love his word today. I really do. I want to let me see where I want to go right now. I want to go to the fact, this is what I wanted to say. I know before I got on today, I was absolutely fatigued. I was absolutely tired. I don't even know if it's fatigue. I was just tired, but I was trying to identify, Father, what is this? And he began to share with me the fatigue that the sons are having. Just it's a little bit of fatigue. It's not lethargy for them, but it's fatigue. It's a tiredness. It's a weariness, but in the weariness, we have to continue to forge forward, because when we're weary and we allow that to impede the progress, then the reaping is not what we're going, that reap is what we're looking for. That finish line, that harvest is what we're looking for. And we want the harvest to be what the Father imagined, not what we're thinking of, right? So we got to stay focused even in the fatigue. Somebody put stay focused in the fatigue, because those are just indicators that, yes, you are human. But the indicator that you are supernatural is the fact that you keep going. I promise you, I didn't want to get on today. I was tired. I was like, oh, it didn't have nothing to do with the season that we're in. I have just been in a mode where wanting to get things done that I've been commanded to do. I feel like this, I believe in with all my heart, that this is the season of accomplishment. This is the season of finish. This is the season of execution. It's the season of doing the thing that the Father said. Now, a lot of people stepped out there prematurely, and they're going to find that in their premature ascent, they're going to come down just as hard as they went up. But it's something about waiting on the Father. I'm not talking about us being lazy. I'm talking about the wait, because sometimes we're thinking that we're denying him something when he is simply allowing us to continue to be processed. I was writing a book some years ago, Unfiltered Honey, and I really wanted to finish that book. But some of the things that I processed through in the last couple of years before starting that book are absolutely essential for that manuscript. Are you understanding what I'm saying? So that essential conversation for that manuscript, sure, I could have written it in pieces and parts, and I'm still going to do that. But there were some essential parts that needed to go in the beginning of that manuscript. And I would not have had that. I would have had to do another iteration of it, which is going to happen anyway as I add things to it. But we have got to understand that everything is not about us. It's about him and his desire to get the glory out of the thing that we do. Yes, we are going to be recognized, because this goes with the whole thing about making our name great. He wanted to do that with all of the sons. You got to think about how all of those nations heard of Israel before they even heard of them, or before they even saw them. They heard of them because the fame of them went before them, because of the Father, right? So it's not a thing of, the greatness of the matter. That's his desire. But when he positions us and said greatness, there should be this accolade that goes to him, that directs people to him. Yes, I appreciate what you're saying. Yes, I thank you for you acknowledging that gift in me, but the Father's put something in you. I heard somebody say this, and it was so profound, because a lot of times we don't even know how to take a compliment, right? When you've been church, you don't know how to take a compliment. You'd be like, oh, glory to God, all glory to him. And that's great. That's what we're going to do. But the reality is they're thanking you for your obedience in that moment. They're appreciating your gift in that moment. That is him making you recognizable. And when he makes you recognizable, then what the thing that we should do is begin to identify with the person that has recognized the gift and begin to lift them and say, I cannot wait to see what he has for you to release. I cannot wait to see all of the gifts and the harvest of all of the gifts that's inside of you. Because if you were able to recognize greatness, that means you're a great person. It's something that we have to do to uplift one another. That's what I'm saying. So let's get back to some of the things that I want to share tonight. I started this conversation yesterday that I believe needs to be unpacked a little bit. I was talking about making decisions, and I had a thought again about the children of Israel, and I was thinking about that whole piece about the flesh pots again. I was thinking about the flesh pots again, and the perspective that we have often viewed that from is that they were just wanting to go back. It's better off being a slave than being out here, being out here in a position to die. And I don't believe that that was their thought process at all, because like I said yesterday, they had already spoiled the Egyptians, so now they had the wealth of Egypt, and they also had some of the rulers of Egypt. You got to think about all of these things. They also had some of the people of high status and high position in Egypt, from Egypt. That was the mixed multitude. That was the mixed multitude. And so what it took me to was the going back to that identification about connection and about community, right? And it's a thing that we often overlook. That connection and community is so important, because even as they were going on their journey, one of the things that most negatively affected the children of Israel was the fact that they had this mixed multitude with them. And the mixed multitude wasn't just with them, but the mixed multitude was having conversations. The mixed multitude, I believe, was a part of engendering the strife that was coming of all of the complaints. Because when you think about people of high status, they're used to having things. They're used to things being at their command. They're used to things just being there. And in the wilderness, that wasn't the case. They're walking and there's no water. They have cups of water. They're walking, and now they're complaining about being thirsty because they're used to getting whatever they want whenever they want, right? Now they're used to they're used to eating however they want to eat. They're used to eating from the king's table, a royal a feast, if you would, a royal way of eating, a royal diet. Now they're in the wilderness and we ain't gonna eat. Wait a minute, what's going on? I talked about fasting yesterday and how important the fast is, but the fast is not just important for the sake of fasting. It's not just important for the sake of a ritual, a tradition. The fast is so important. The Father was talking to me about this today, and I thought it was so profound that he was sharing with me the fast purpose is for your energy renewal. The energy, I know that sounds weird to church folks, right? Your energy renewal. Okay, so he said these kind come out only by prayer and fasting. So now what did the Father do with the children of Israel? Okay, he made sure they ate. They ate in haste. Then they had to burn the rest of it. They couldn't carry it with them, so ain't no leftovers, ain't no seconds on this. Just eat and let's go. And then they get in the wilderness, and he's causing them to go through periods of fasting. Dry fast, by the way, which is very popular and which will bless your whole life if you learn to do it. It'll bless your whole life. It resets everything. But because we don't prepare ourselves for things, then and we try to jump into things without going through processes. That's why I keep talking about processes, because processes are so important. Yes, the dry fast is very powerful, but if you don't process your body before you go into that space, you're probably going to damage yourself, because first of all, you don't have the information to know how to come out of it. You don't have the information you need to sustain it. So all of these things are necessary. And this kind of goes back to the top of the conversation when I was talking about how the Father reveals himself for the intrigue, so that we can come after him, so that we'll begin to desire and to go after the relationship. And when we go after the relationship, then more is revealed. But we have to go after the information, and we have to go after what it is he's attempting to show us through his word, through the people that he uses, by way of Holy Spirit, those things that people call the first mind, right? I should just follow my first mind. You know how you drive down the street and you wound up going in a direction that they created a detour that took you way out of the way, but your first mind, right? Your first mind said go this way, and you went the opposite way. These are things that he's always using. He uses the dream realm, the dream realm to begin to communicate with us. All of these things are factors in the prophetic journey to help us identify where he is, what he's doing, and what's going on with us. And that's ultimately really important. Even if we're having dreams that we feel like are nightmarish, there is really no such thing as a nightmare, because all dreams are informative. All dreams are information. And if you understand the necessity for intel, being a son of Yah, how important that is, how invaluable that is, then you would never consider a dream a nightmare, because you just will wake up trying to identify and seeking the Father about, what are you trying to say to me? What does this mean? Sometimes he's trying to steer us away from our own desire in a dream. That's not a nightmare. He's saying, if you do that, this was going to happen, right? So it's about him giving us this instruction just like he gave to the children of Israel in this very same time, the instruction. Listen, this is what we're doing. I need you to follow this protocol. Okay, get the lamb. You're on the 10th day. I need you to get the lamb. I need you to prepare the lamb according to the household. He's given all of these instructions. And if the house is too, if the lamb, you don't have enough lamb, get enough to suffice for all of those that'll be eating it, right? And then don't save none. And then, I need you to be ready. So have your shoes on your feet and have your loins girded, pull yourself together so that when it's time to go, you can go, because around midnight, I'm going to show up in the land and I'm going to begin to do some things. I'm going to begin to finalize some things for your freedom. That's what the Father's been doing, finalizing things for our freedom. But, the reality is that I said this yesterday, because we love our own way, or we become so fascinated with the way that we have already gone, then we often cannot grasp what he's saying and what he's doing, because that seems so foreign to us. Remember, let's go back to reality. Just because it's not the reality that you're familiar with doesn't mean that it's not the reality. It really is. And you can't go where you don't know. So it's something that you're going to have to know right now that you don't know, that you're going to need access to that information in order to get where you're supposed to be. And if you don't have the relationship, then you're subject to whatever other things are pending, or conversations that are ruminating on the loudspeakers, if you will, on the loud system, right? You're hearing all of these frequencies and all of these things, and you could be easily swayed if you don't have an identification on what he's saying and what he's doing. So I was thinking about these flesh pots and thinking about the fact that what if they didn't want to go back to Egypt to be slaves, but their thought was to go back to be rulers, because not only did they have rulers with them, but now they had seized the wealth of the Egyptians. So now when I go back, I can go back. And that's the thought, I want to show up and I want them to see me do this, and I want them to see me in this. And if I've got to purge that kind of stuff out, because when he's preparing a table before you in the presence of your enemies, he might tell you to give your enemy an apple. I'm just telling you. He might tell you to give your enemy an apple. And if you're not prepared in your heart for that kind of movement, if you're not prepared to be as he is, to with loving kindness draw people, you know what I'm saying? If you're not willing and ready to be pliable and bendable like that, then you're not ready to sit at the table. You might not be ready to sit at the table, right? So the Father's desire in this hour is to completely move us. This is why a lot of movements that people have been undergoing are so unfamiliar, right? I'm like, and I've been feeling this way for a minute now, but I know it was the buildup for where we are now. Just like almost uncomfortable, like, oh, I'm not sure. Yeah, okay, that's the way. Yeah, but this feels different because I'm used to, right, a certain way of doing things. I'm used to functioning this way. And the Father's saying, he's not asking for our permission, right? He's not doing what he's doing based on our feelings or our former functions. He's doing what he's doing to get us to destiny. He's doing what he's doing to get us to the promised place. And there are some promises that he made even to forefathers of our own, not just to Abraham and Isaac and all of them, but he made some promises to our own lineages, people that loved him, that were following the protocol, following the blueprint. And we're going to talk about the blueprint in a minute. And they left here with things unfinished, that now it's like the weight. This is what we're feeling. We're feeling the weight of the responsibility of the things that we're called to do. And this is why it's so important that we get our bodies in order, that our minds be in order, that our spirits be in order. Why? Because the Father does what he does through the vessel. And if the vessel is broken, if the vessel is contaminated, if the vessel is infected, then that is what's going to come out of the vessel that's going to go to the people that are receiving. I'm going to read what Apostle Joanne. Hey, sister, glad you were able to get on with us tonight. We like familiar surroundings. So when Yah's revealing something new to us, we are not ready to change and change quickly. Yeah, we're not apt to change unless that's become a way of life. We're not apt to change. Even if you have consistently changed with everything that he's spoken, you're still, because of the human side of you, going to identify that through a lens, right? Because how we're built is for fight or flight, You know, those, all of these mechanisms are real mechanisms. They're part of what make us human and part of what protects us, right? So everything has to be vetted. But this is how the Father said vetted. He said, "Bring every thought captive." So if we operate from the supernatural side of things and we begin to bring the thoughts captive, then we may be able to bypass that concept of, you know, fight or flight because everything ain't about that. You know, everything ain't about, uh-oh, do I need to run, right? Some things are just, I need to just submit. Can y'all just put in the chat, I just need to submit? That's just really what it boils down to. This is, I shared this the other day, and I think this is integral for me to repeat. We are in the season of let the wicked be wicked still and the righteous be righteous still. You know, what's happening right now is about judgments. What's happening right now is about judgments and blessings. And wherever we are is what we're going to get. Wherever we are is what we can get. Now, that doesn't speak to the fact that what we do and how he's moving in us is going to draw other people. This is where it's going to get real funny because, you know, just like the passage that talks about the good man who owned the land and those people came and they worked for him. They, you know, they agreed on a price, and then they agreed on a price. And then the good man saw that, listen, they're not going to finish. I got to go find some more work because the sun is going down. He went out and found more workers. They came in, sun down, they working good, but they getting the same pay. And the other people mad. This is what it's going to look like. Because a lot of people that's been in church and been in religion their whole life are going to look up and people that was just out there doing whatever. People that was out there doing all kind of crazy are going to come in and attach themselves to the will of Yah and move at a forceful advance. And they're going to be talking about some, oh, well, I remember when, and you can remember whatever you want to remember about when, but right now they moving kinetically in the things of Yah. Okay. It's a season of prophetic duality, judgment, and justice. Absolutely. And so where you stand, just understand is where you stand. And that's what's going to be the harvest. Where you stand is the harvest you're going to get. Okay. And so I want to look at a couple of things here. I shared the thing about Egypt already. Um, I want to share something else with you. I'm not going to hold you long tonight. I'm really not. Um, I wanted to share the fact that I was really tired today. Um, really tired. And I really would have just rather sat here and just read and just sat in his presence, right? But he calls for us to do these things. And so we must, you need to know that just because you're a leader doesn't mean you're not going to not feel like doing stuff. I don't know why I feel the need to talk about that because I think a lot of people think that leaders are exempt from having to go through the process of, yeah, I'll obey. No, we're not exempt. We actually feel the tired or the fatigue that other people feel and want to just be like, yeah, I'm good today. That's how I felt earlier. I was like, Father, I'm good today. Can't we just sit here and fellowship and just, you know, just chill? He was like, no, you got work to do. I need you to get on the live and have some conversations. And I said, okay, then that's what we're going to do. that's exactly what we're going to do. Is not that I wanted to do it originally, but because it was his desire, it became mine. And so this is why I am here. One of the things that I wanted to uh, deal with tonight is this travel light piece, right? Because that's the title that we're dealing with. And you need to understand that if you allow fatigue or lethargy to persist, then it will be the thing that prevents your ascension. My yes to Yah in every season of fatigue or any of that is the fact that I understand his mind or his thoughts toward me. So I'm consistently looking, for me, his mind and his thoughts towards me are my finish line in the race. Okay. And so when I look at his mind and his thoughts as the finish line, I understand that I got to get at the starting line, the starting gate. I got to get there and prepare to run, because otherwise I won't get to the end of the thing. I won't get to the finish. And ascension is everything. Okay. Ascension is everything as it pertains to this time that we're in, the Feast of Unleavened Bread, Pesach. Why? Because the Father was desiring to take his people to this ascended place. He chose them not because they were the strongest, Not because, and when I say the strongest, even I'm dealing with the amount of people. They weren't as many people as some of the other nations. But he chose them because he recognized the weakness that he could highlight greatness from. He chose them because he could take that weakness and turn it into greatness. And, we spend a lot of time looking at the things that we feel like we're insufficient in. I believe that this is a real season of the adversarial things that have been spoken to us. All of that's coming up now. All of the diabolic things that were spoken, the words that were spoken, all of that stuff is coming up now. Why? Because you're getting ready to go into a place of promise. So what happened before they went into that promised place? The spies come back and say, hey, we can't do it. And it's a little bit bigger than that. I'm just giving you the gist of it, because all of them had a conversation and their conversations varied. But hey, we can't do it. Right? We can't do it. They saw themselves in a way that the Father didn't see them. His word to them was, you're going to possess the land. And their word to themselves was, I can't do it. Because they begin to look at their insufficiencies. But understand this reality, that when you begin to look at the fact that you're insufficient, you understand that his grace is sufficient for you. Grace, God ability, that's what you need in order to accomplish this great thing that he's calling you to in this hour. It's not about your own ability without him. It's your ability through him that's going to allow you to be able to accomplish anything and everything that he's calling you to. I'm looking at what you're saying, Apostle Joanne. I'm tired today from last night, and I did the meal prior to cleaning days before. Yeah, he skipped over them, even their complaints. Yeah, he did. I don't care. He don't care nothing about our complaints. He's not asking for our permission. He was still taking them to the place of promise while they were complaining. And this is the thing, that we have to look at this thing from a very practical place. I'm not just reading the scriptures to you this year. I'm having divine conversations that he's had with me to help you identify. I can't tell you what to do, but I'm praying that I can help you form a way of thinking about some things, that your perspective can be shifted so that you can see what you need to see to get to the place that he's calling you to and get to the people that he's calling you to. She said, this Apostle Joanne said, the scriptures said he first loved them. He chose them when they were small in number. Absolutely. It wasn't about the size. It wasn't about their strength. It wasn't about any of that. And you'll see that repetitively throughout scripture and throughout the Bible narrative. You'll see that repetitively, that he's choosing people that are the least likely. It happened with David, right? That happened with David. All of those sons, Samuel's looking at them. He's like, well, surely this is. And the father like, nope, that's not it either. Okay. It happened with Gideon. Gideon said, I'm not only is my tribe the least of all the tribes, but I am the least of my tribe. Father says, so what? Man of valor. You're a mighty man of valor. So the Father is really dealing with our perspective of ourselves in him, because whatever has been spoken over the years, those things are coming back up now. And why are they coming back up right now? They're coming up to challenge you. But if you can just identify yourself through the eyes of Yah in this season, you can get past those things, get over those things. They'll be a thing that is beneath you. And this takes me back to a conversation that we had a little bit on fasting. I want to go back to that for a minute, because when we're talking about energy, we're talking about the call that he said, subdue. When you subdue a thing, that means make it subordinate or make it subject to, right? So this is the other thing that happens in the fasted state. Everything that could be potentially an objection or an adversary, that includes in your physical body, sickness, disease, all of that. But from a spiritual and a physical point of view, is subdued. But you have to prepare for that kind of position. It doesn't just happen. You got to prepare for it. And if you prepare for it, that's the place that a lot of people don't understand. You become that Enochian breed. You become that son that is unstoppable, because now you have an identity on something. You are repetitively, intentionally doing something. You're not just throwing some spaghetti at a wall and hoping it sticks. You know what I'm saying? You have an intention behind what you're doing, because you've seen the production of what you're doing. You've identified with an understanding. You've got some clarity around your identity and who the Father is through you. And so now you are intentionally doing things. I see you, Apostle Joanne. I'm sorry, y'all. I'm not even posting up y'all comments. It says, and that is occurring. Now we are seeing a lot of shifting. The little is becoming much. I have seen an usher become a pastor because of what the leader had done. Absolutely. Absolutely. This is a thing. This is a real thing. But this fatigue and the lethargy, if you're not mindful of what's going on with you, got to recognize it. It's not that I'm not fatigued. I'm not fatigued. No, that's ignorance. We're not going to say that that's not the case. No, that is the case. But I'm going to identify why I am. And I'm going to begin to look at my finish line again, because I can't stop here because I'm tired. Oh my goodness. I love looking at those shorts or the videos where people are running a race and they injure themselves in the race, but they crawl to the finish line or they hop to the finish line. It's something in their programming that says, I might not make it to the finish before you, but I'm still going. Did you hear that? I might not make it there before you, but I'm still going. I'm not going to not go. I'm going to go because it's in me to finish. It's absolutely in me to finish. Okay? So our journey towards this ascension place is that process of transformation. And that process of transformation is where it often feels like an exhaustive battle. You're exhausted because your mind is wrapping around things that are greater than what you've already seen. It's not just, I don't want to do it. It's that there's something bigger. Like in this season, I'm finding that the Father's talking so much about so many things sometimes, and I'm a note taker, note writer. I easily will plan out something to discuss. And it's just like he's saying so much, I don't even know where to start. I'm just gonna be honest with you. I don't even know where to start most of the time. I don't. I don't. And so I'm sitting there like, okay, Father, what do you want me to do with that? But when we go to this fatigue, a lot of times the fatigue, like I said, is bringing up things that were past. So the weight of that past experience, the disappointments, the challenges, and the unmet expectations, right, that we had in others and sometimes that we placed on ourselves is what bring about that fatigue that stifles our progress. But the truth is that the Father never calls us based on those, us having it all together. He doesn't call us based on us having all the ducks in a row and all of that. He's calling us based on his thoughts toward us. And the fatigue is not just physical, but it can be deeply spiritual. And it manifests in all kinds of ways: doubt, fear, confusion. And those are the things that create that barrier between who we are and who we're called to be. Because that is an evolution, right? Iterations, reinvention. We can become so focused on our limitations or what we're considering our failures and the heaviness that we carry that we miss the divine invitation to rise. That's where we are. We're in the season of Yah calling us to rise. But if we're so focused on past things, if we're so focused on past failures and the limitations that we believe that we have, because we haven't exhausted the relationship enough to know that we're limitless, then these are the things that the adversary is using to keep us from ascending. I love thinking about this because when you think about the Mashiach, all of the things that he had to endure, even dealing with them ready to stone him and push him off that cliff, and then he walked through the midst of them. They didn't even see him. They couldn't stop his rise. You know why? Because the Father had already determined an outcome. And that outcome was him going to his death for us to live. That outcome was already established. So if we really identify the fact that these thoughts that the Father has towards us are of good and not of evil, to give us an expected end, he has an expectation. And we should have an expectation of this goodness that is at an end. But if we're not paying attention to that, then we'll easily be swayed off of that path and be considering all of these things that bring us down, that prevent us from the rise, right? The journey to ascension is never about moving forward based on our strength. We talked about that a little bit, but it's upon the strength of his vision for us. And the key is understanding that his thoughts towards us are higher than our own. They're higher. They really are. His thoughts are higher than ours about us particularly. Okay. And that's the fact. Okay. It's we're supposed to be moving from a place of divine insight. That's the place that we're called to act from. Okay. So that power of ascension is beyond the fatigue. The weariness that we feel in our daily lives is often a distraction from the higher calling. We got to get past that weary place, that fatigue place. And in this season, I'm utilizing a lot of me time to just sit back and ponder the things of Yah, what He's spoken to me, what He said to me, and visualize myself in those spaces. I was talking to Elder Vicky the other day, and I was telling her, people don't even consider special care of themselves like breathing. We think because it's autonomous that we're not supposed to give attention to it but most people breathe so shallow, it's unreal. You're not even getting enough oxygen in your lungs and wondering why you're not okay. It's because you don't take care of the things. You don't mind the things that are necessary to mind for your wellness. We got to take the time to breathe even. We don't even know how to do that. Children breathe really deeply. Even when they cry so deep, right? This is our example of how we're supposed to be functioning. But as we grow older, we get so busy. I'm using this as an example for how we deal with life and how we deal with spirituality. We get so busy, we forget to breathe. We forget to give attention to our breathing. We forget to give attention to thoughtfulness and mindfulness. He said, let this mind be in you. Well, how do you get to a place of allowing a mindset to be in you if you don't take the time to really ponder the mindset, utilize your imagination to place yourself in that space? How do you get there? Are you understanding what I'm saying? I thank God for you being strengthened, sister, because I'm feeling strength too. You got to get up. That's it. She said it's a lot of warfare as well, but you still got to get up. Knowing, that's the thing, sister. It's the knowing for me. Okay? It's the knowing for me. Can you guys still hear me? Because my screen is really dark. And I'm trying to understand why it's so dark. Why is my screen dark? I hope you guys are able to see it. I suppose you would have told me if you couldn't. She said knowing is knowing, and sometimes you need to rest so you can be restored for the next assignment. Absolutely. Apostle Joanne says, yes, it is. And I'm finding that a lot this year, but I'm looking at what Yah is saying to me. That's what we have to do. We got to focus on what He's saying and not what we're seeing, not what we're experiencing. It has to be what He's saying. I'm glad you're being strengthened. Breathing exercises are a real thing. And a lot of people say, oh, that's what the world do. Well, at least they got enough sense to do that. It's putting them in a state. Remember, I was talking about irresponsible states of being. I think that was the first day that the Holy Spirit gave me that. You guys are functioning in irresponsible states of being, but the irresponsible state of being that you're functioning in is a result of your shallow breathing, your shallow identity, your shallow revelation of yourself. Everything is shallow. So this is why. This is why you're living in irresponsible states of being. Because you're living in a shallow place. You're living in a place that I want it to look like something, but it don't have to be that. But I want to be impressive. I want to show people that I have something. I want to, look like. I was talking to somebody I love today. Might have been my husband. And I was talking about people, and clout. The only reason why you want to be connected to this person or that person is just for the clout of things. It's not an authentic relationship. You're utilizing their energy. You're utilizing who they are to position yourself, right? And so we got to think about these things even when we're doing what we're doing. I heard a dear sister of mine, she's doing a thing, and I'm not going to say what she's doing because that ain't none of your business. But the thing that she's doing, I'm just saying for me, and I know that we're all not called to the same thing, but there are particular guidelines or foundations that have been established as guide stones. Like you're going to build based on the right dimensions, because this original stone that's laid is telling you how to build. It's giving you how you can build, right? And so I'm looking at some of the things that people are doing, and it's like, you saying that you believe that the Father told you to do this, but what you're doing ain't got nothing to do with what He's saying. That looks like something that you're doing because you want to be in a limelight, you want to be in a position of, some kind of authority and connection with very important, what people consider very, and notice I said what people consider very important people. It's different when you've been called to that, because being called to that means he's going to position you for that. You don't have to do the positioning. You're going to follow what you're called to do. And the word says that he said that nations shall come to your light and kings to the brightness of your rising. I hope y'all got that. You don't have to make a name for yourself. You don't have to create a ministry around going after people that have really high names to try to finagle and, all. No. Nations will come to your light. What are you doing? Are you lit up? Is what he's called you to do so bright right now that nations can see that light, and kings, people that you're trying to go after, come to your brightness. They come to the brightness of your rising. You don't go to theirs. I'm just saying, we got to pay attention to these things, because these are the things that prevent us from getting to that place of ascension. These are the things that prevent us from getting to that place of promise. We got all these ideas and all these concepts that are not founded, that are not foundationally settled in the Father's words. They're not foundationally centered around what he desires. Do you know how simple discipleship is? I'm going to throw this out there, and then I'm going to turn y'all loose in a minute after I read Apostle Joanne's comments. Discipleship is just this simple. Apostle Joanne, this is what he showed me. I've been writing manuals and different things for discipleship and putting a lot of really amazing things in there. And he gave me a specific blueprint today that goes along with what he already gave me to write. And the truth of the matter is that every Moed is the blueprint for discipleship. We start with Pesach, which is identifying the sacrifice, right? And the purpose that the sacrifice holds for us. It prevents us from destruction. It protects us in destruction. Then you got Feast of Unleavened Bread. Why? He's going to take us on a journey now. How many people come into Christendom and this idea of religion and think, oh, all my troubles are over? No, they just began. You ain't seen trouble yet, but you're going to have to process through trouble to get to the other side, to come out in the power of the Spirit, and then you'll have a new life, and you'll be able to have a different lease on how you're going to function. And you'll have the disciplines and all of the things that you need, because you've been discipled to move accordingly. Feast of Unleavened Bread. What is that? That's the time where he's going to make us move through some things. We're going to go through our wilderness season, right? He's going to show us himself, right? And as he shows us himself, then he takes us through processes. And sometimes it's like, where did you go? Did he leave? No, he didn't leave. He's right there. He's still guiding. He's still leading. He gave us parameters, and he gave us a blueprint. And he's saying, listen, follow the blueprint. Do you know that a lot of people spend so much time trying to figure stuff out when there's a blueprint? You don't have to figure out how to get to the promised land. There's a blueprint. Are you hearing what I'm saying? So the Father's commanding that we travel light so that we can step into the Enochian light travel concept of things. If you travel light, you're not carrying the baggage of yesterday. You're not worn out with the ideas and the concepts of what was spoken over your life and the things that you've been traumatized by. Traveling light means you're going to release all of those things, right? Because there is going to be a burden, and there is going to always be a yoke, but his yoke is easy and his burden is light. I want to trade that. I want to trade my yoke and my burden for his yoke. That was the whole point of the concept. Let's switch. It already happened. The switch happened at the death of the Mashiach. That happened there. That was the trading place for my yoke and my burden. I'm supposed to trade the yoke so that I have the light yoke and the light burden. The easy yoke and the light burden. Yoke is easy. The easy yoke and the light burden. That's what I should have. If I made the right trade, if I'm in the relationship properly. But because people are not discipled, they go through all of these different spaces and places that really bring a lot of trauma. And so now they're what's the word I want to use? They're timid about a lot of things because they don't know. They don't know because they've never been taught. And I love the transparency of AK the other day. She said, nobody's teaching us. Nobody's talking to us about this. Nobody never told me this, and I'm 36. That's what she said. That's the reason why I show up. That's the reason why I do what I do, because not only am I called to it, but somebody is waiting to answer the phone on the other end of my call. Somebody else is waiting on my obedience. Somebody else is waiting on your obedience. This is why we have to fulfill. This is why we have to do it. We have to follow through. We can't allow ourselves to be so tired that we don't follow through. I had to get up off my butt and get it done today. I did. Let me read some of Apostle Joanne's comments. Okay, there it goes. Let me back up. That's good right there, Apostle. I'm feeling strengthened. Okay, I read that already. Let's keep going. Yeah. Okay, this is time where the enemy is trying to take the breath. He is, by a lot of things that are in the air. So we take the necessary steps like garlic, onions, honey, turmeric in our teas, drinking our food. Absolutely. Everything that we're talking about here has spiritual connotations for natural manifestations. When we look at this travel, this traverse through the wilderness, we can see the mind of Yah concerning his people and the process, in the immediate discipleship process that has to be undergone. People have to get an understanding and an identity on who he is, and then begin to deal with the purging of the old lifestyle, right? How you got people that's been in church for 30 years and still got the same vices, or got worse vices than they had when they came in? You know why? Because they didn't learn the way of death. They didn't learn to die to themselves. They didn't learn that. They didn't learn the purpose of dying to themselves, taking up their cross and following the Mashiach, right? He said, listen, if you're going to do what I do, you're going to have to take up your cross. In other words, you're going to have to identify with the thing that creates the problem for you. And when you identify that thing, you're going to need to reject it and follow me. Yeah, well, he's not talking about us walking around with some weight. No, he's saying recognize the thing, because I've suffered for it. So recognize it. Recognize the burden, and then take my yoke upon you. My yoke is easy. My burden is light. Recognize it and trade it. Make my suffering the trading ground. Right? Israel should have made that lamb suffering the trading ground to know, listen, now, this has never happened before. Now, we've been instructed, kill this lamb, eat this food, rush up out of here. We got these Egyptians well. We're going to a promised land. We ain't even never heard of that. But understand, there was already, I said this before and I'll say it again, sons had already gotten to the promise. They left it because of the famine. And understand, famine comes because of disobedience. Famine comes because of idolatry, famine, blasting, Moed, all of that stuff. If you look in Leviticus, you'll identify why famine comes. It's a response to something. It said, Elder Vicky, I see you. My phone is going in and out. Nothing to do with you, so I'm going to catch replay. Okay, that's awesome. I love you. Apostle Joanne said, an architect knows how to read the blueprint. He has to follow the geometrical instructions. And it's no need to have to figure nothing out, though. That's the thing. When you got a blueprint, you don't have to figure it out. But if you don't have a blueprint, you're going to have to be constantly wearing yourself out trying to figure out what the next thing is to do. You know? And that's the position the enemy loves us to be in, because he knows you ain't going to figure it out. Because the only way you're going to come into the identity of what's next is to have the blueprint and know how a blueprint works. Because there are some things you might have to improvise on. You might see something and say, oh, you know what? Okay, I see that. Okay, oh, so I'm supposed to build this like that. But that's why not only do you have a blueprint, because think about Abraham. No, think about Moshe. That's where we at. Think about Moshe. Think about Moshe in the wilderness with this heavenly blueprint, this divine blueprint that Yah has given him. And he has people that have been anointed to create from the blueprint. People that are anointed to create it. Bezalel and Aholiab, not only are they anointed to create it, but they're also anointed to teach or train other people to assist them in the creation. This is amazing. All we need is a blueprint, y'all. Light travelers travel light. I'm sure we'll have some more conversations about light travel tomorrow. But I want to give you just a couple practical steps to overcome fatigue. Reclaim vision, because the fatigue often comes when we lose sight of the purpose behind the call. And it's easy to do that in a moment, but you got to shake yourself and get back up. It's like falling off a bike. Okay, I fell off. I'm getting back up. I'm getting back on because I got somewhere to go. I'm riding. So you got to revisit purpose and remember the divine thoughts that Yah has about you, because his plans for you are always bigger than your current circumstances. Number 2, you're going to need to rest in his strength. Fatigue is a sign that we need to lean into divine rest. Did not the Father say to Paul when he was dealing with his contradictions? He said, listen, my grace is sufficient. He said, take this thing away from me. He said, nah, I ain't going to take it. But I'm going to give you the God ability to get through it. I need you to acknowledge it. I need it to be there as a reminder. But I'm going to give you such a grace, such a God ability that you're going to be able to function and you're going to get over it. Break the mental chains. You're going to have to in this season shift from seeing yourself through the lens that you've been looking through to seeing yourself through his lens of potential and purpose. That's where you got to focus. Because as you start to embrace his thoughts of you, you're going to break free from mental limitations. You're going to break free from those healthy emotional limitations. And then you're going to have to take action in the midst of fatigue. That's what I did today. Because ascension requires movement. Even when you're fatigued, you got to take your steps of faith. One step at a time. Right? You got to take one step at a time. Let the motion of your faith carry you even when flesh feels weak. Did not the word say when we are weak, he is strong? We're going to rely on the Father's strength and not our own. All right. I love y'all. Listen, we're going to come back tomorrow. I'm sure we'll have some conversations around light travel, but I enjoyed the conversation today and I'm glad I obeyed and I'm glad you were strengthened by the conversation. If you were strengthened today, just remind me that you were strengthened so I know and remember the reason why I got on even though I was tired. Don't forget to like the video. And if you have not subscribed to the YouTube channel, go ahead and subscribe to the YouTube channel and spread the word. We want to grow in this hour. He does want his people to be free from traditions. Yeah, he wants that so badly. He desires that so badly. But you know why he desires it? Because his desire is for relationship. And when we're stuck in those traditions, we're not in the relationship. So his real desire is the relationship. Blessings, AK. Thank you so much for being with me this evening. Yeah, I need you to do that. You can do that tomorrow. You're going to be on with me tomorrow, Apostle Joanne? Brother will be here too. We can have a party. A natural party tomorrow. And I got plenty of stuff to say to y'all. And I really want to share some more things with you about, I don't know. Am I going to share that? I don't know. I'm going to shut up. I'm going to be quiet. Just don't overthink stuff in this season, you know? Rest in the blueprint. Don't overthink it. That's really what the Father wants us to get to, that place where we're not overthinking it. Okay? Because a lot of that, sometimes we're bogged down with the weight of just overthinking. And questions are good, but we don't have to wrestle with questions and strategies and plans. We can just trust his process, trust the process that he's taken us through, and trust the blueprint that he's given us. He gave me this word before I got on. The truth is that we don't have to think about doing what the blueprint already instructs. You ain't got to think about what the blueprint already instructs. 6:45. 6:45. I'll send you the link, sister. Love you guys to life. Listen, remember that you're blessed and don't you forget it. And remember, as we always say, the body is not a meat thing. It's a we thing.